name's Nasar Meer. I'm lead investigator for the project with my colleagues who are here, plus colleagues elsewhere. And I'm just going to do three things relatively briefly. The first thing I want to do is just set our conversation around accommodation and housing provision in Scotland this afternoon in the context of our overall project. And I'm then going to give you some key findings from our focus on accommodation and provision of housing in other countries, including in Malmo in Sweden, in Nicosia in Cyprus, in Calabria in Italy, in addition to Glasgow. And there are three key findings really that I kind of want to highlight. And first is that the kind of the hierarchies of housing provision according to relative migration status is something which is evident across all of our cases, but it's something which challenges the systems of accommodation provision in each of our cases too. So it's a challenge for all of the systems of accommodation that we're looking at, not just parts of it. The second is the finding that where accommodation housing provision strategies are successful, is they're also tied to other areas of social life, and I'll elaborate a little bit about that. And the third is to say that whilst partnership with non-state actors is now the norm across all of our cases, it varies in their extent and actually in their success. So there's the three main findings I'm going to highlight, and then I'm going to talk to some final direction on where we might go next. Okay, so Tim has highlighted, GLIMER is a project which is interested in how the local, or a focus on the local, can tell us something meaningful about developments in the governance. So to this end, our project takes a kind of multi-sided approach, which spans both the north and the south of Europe, and across the sectors of housing, as we'll talk about today, but also labour market participation, language instruction and provision, as well as some other areas of civil life. So in addition to Glasgow, we work on Malmo in Sweden, we work on Centre in Italy, and we work on Nicosia in Cyprus. Now, four cases are broadly comparable urban areas in terms of their size, but they differ in terms of how they're kind of patterned by ground level politics, local networks, and economic resources. And this block of research has been examining how the question of housing, which ultimately is this kind of core sector of integration, how a focus on the local features of this might shed light on how city and local level approaches negotiate to some extent, sometimes diverge from national level policy and rhetoric. Now, displaced migration, asylum, refugee accommodation, and settlement processes are particularly, I think, characterised by this local and national dynamic, and the kind of forms of horizontal partnership that emerge in civil society between different kinds of stakeholders. Now, while there's some kind of existing research out there which has been looking at housing and accommodation pathways, it's often very focused on single cases in one particular country. Or it's very ethnographically driven. It wants to tell a particular story, but it's not able to then generalise and tell a broader story, especially about public policy. Now, to some extent, that's surprising. Since academic and policy literature share in common a view, which is set out by the Congress on Local and Regional Authorities, that housing is a fundamental question to be faced from both short-term and long-term perspectives on the incorporation of displaced migrants and refugees. Now, of course, what is short-term and what is long-term are not questions which stand apart from the wider migration experience of formal and informal legal status and the variously kind of defined ways in which states try to go about the question of integration therein. And while housing is in many respects then the kind of the cornerstone of the needs of displaced migrants and refugees, housing is not the same as having a home. And while the focus in our work is more in terms of kind of housing policy, these two things, of course, intertwine. As Deborah Phillips puts nicely in a paper from a few years ago, she talks about the ways in which housing conditions and experiences of refugees clearly play an important role in shaping their sense of security and belonging, and have a bearing on their access to healthcare, education, and employment. It's in many respects the cornerstone, I suppose, of the whole integration and incorporation experience. And I suppose what we'd add to that is that as much as accommodation can be used as a means of incorporation, it can also be used as a means of deterring migration, rather than facilitating the incorporation of displaced migration. And I think that's evident in the locality and the quality of accommodation across all of our cases that I've discussed, as well as the selective nature of its provision or its refusal, and the temporary tenure of some contracts and the forced evictions in others, all of which speak to that tendency. Each of those things, I think, can be part of the asylum-seeking journey, something that often begins with a process which is designed to kind of sort people into particular categories and particular locations before they end up in their eventual place of residence. So we found that in Italy, asylum seekers and refugees are initially housed in what are called extraordinary reception centres, CAS centres, and then they're moved later into the SPARA system, which is an acronym for the Protection of Asylum and Refugees. This is a network. It's a form of what in Italy they call integrated reception, and it's made up of a series of projects which collaborate across the third sector, across the private sector, across local authorities. And importantly, it includes access to labour markets. So there's a transition in Italy for housing to what we might call Mode 1, emergency reception and arrival, and Mode 2, integrated reception. Now launched in 2002, the SPARA model, which is currently facing quite a lot of political challenge in Italy, as it's detailed in our policy briefs and in our country reports on Italy, which are available on our webpage. It relies very much on a network of local authorities that has access to national level funding. So this kind of networked approach that we find in Italy contrasts very much with the Swedish system, in which asylum seekers choose either when they arrive to stay in what's called facility accommodation, which is arranged by the Swedish Migration Agency, or in what they call own accommodation, which is arranged by asylum seekers and refugees themselves, based upon existing networks that they have. Now, people in the facility accommodation are transferred there by the Swedish Migration Agency. And those can be in different municipalities or different regions. In 2016, the Swedish government introduced what's called the settlement law in order to kind of speed up this kind of movement of people. And also borrowing to some extent from the UK to encourage a geographical dispersal of displaced migrants and refugee reception, making it mandatory now for some municipalities and local authorities to receive displaced migrants and refugees in a way in which before was voluntary. Now that dispersed approach, I suppose, is most keenly observed in our Scottish case, which, as the rest of the UK testifies, uses a kind of two-tier system for the accommodation of displaced migrants and refugees. Those who are accommodated as part of the dispersal scheme, and those who are part of what used to be called the Syrian Vulnerable Persons Resettlement. Now, as we detail in our policy briefs and in our Scotland report, the accommodation available through the dispersal scheme has created what we would characterise as a series of competing and complex governance interests that are kind of exacerbated by this multi-level governance where Scotland can be out of kilter with the rest of the UK's restrictions on access to welfare according to migration status, especially when it comes to things like no recourse to public funds. In Cyprus, meanwhile, there's a growing need of an increasing asylum population, which continues to be insufficiently tackled by the state. The vast majority of applicants in Nicosia appear unable to secure any shelter whatsoever in the Reception and Accommodation Centre, which is in Nicosia, and so instead it kind of dispersed through the island. The only real option for asylum seekers for accommodation is the reception centre in Kosovo, which is not fit for purpose, it exceeds capacity, which means that there's a lot of temporary residents elsewhere on the island. And in fact, if you go to Nicosia, you will find people camping out in public squares. in a way in which means that the state is not providing elementary care for people, for vulnerable people, with complex needs, including children at the moment. Okay, so what are our key kinds of findings between our cases? Well, the first thing I want to talk about a little bit is this kind of provision of hierarchy according to migration status, something which varies, but what we argue and what we find is really difficult to sustain in ways that don't end up undermining the whole system. I'm not sure entirely if you can see this, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about policy. So in Calabria, in Italy, the region of Calabria, the centre, which is the city of Calabria, there's a sharp contrast between what we call kind of mode 1, the emergency mode, and then the SPARA system, which is about integrated reception. And that's what's currently under attack in Italy by what's called the Salvini decree, Matteo Salvini being the interior minister, who really wants to challenge that non-differentiation between those seeking asylum and those that have refugee status. That distinction hasn't hitherto been made in Italy, it's being made now. And of course, people who have refugee status get accommodation, people who are asylum trapped down. In Nicosia, there is really only kind of one mode. It's the emergency reception mode. And as a consequence, homelessness has become a defining feature of the experience of asylum seekers in Cyprus, because the Coffin Centre has reached its capacity, and private accommodation is obviously unaffordable to many people in the rent amounts that they may or may not receive. And so it lays bare the kind of weaknesses of an entire approach that, as we say, undermines the system as a whole. In Glasgow, these two modes are run together. In the dispersal scheme, in the relocation scheme, accommodation provision is no longer held or led by the public and third sector providers. It's led principally by private contractors who are operationally responsible for asylum accommodation until the point of decision. Post-decision, the local government is responsible for the housing of new refugees with recourse to public funds. Emergency housing for asylum seekers and refugees with no recourse to public funds falls primarily then to the charity of the third sector. So the Swedish system tries to kind of emulate the UK system. It should come with that warning that the arrangements that the facilitate are not simple. The system requires this range of stakeholders with different, sometimes competing priorities, different budgets, different expertise. It also requires them to negotiate particularly complex environment between national, regional, and local powers, as well as between welfare entitlements and immigration rules. So in the slide behind me, you can see our cases, Glasgow, Malmo, Calabria, and Nicosia, and then you can see the kind of basic provision which is provided. So whilst it's housing for refugees in all of our cases, with the exception of Nicosia, there is also reception accommodation in all of our cases, with the exception of Glasgow. There's private sector housing, which is available in all of our cases, where people have access to that, but very little do. And third sector housing, that I'll talk about a little bit more, starts to assume a greater role. The second tendency that I trailed at the beginning is that the successful approaches to housing provision and accommodation are only really successful when they're coupled with other areas of activity. And this is presently, I think, relatively unevenly pursued. So in Italy, the SPARA system, local authorities provide legal and social guidance for applicants, as well as assistance to look for a kind of individualised path for socioeconomic inclusion, integration. Now, from the analysis of settlement processes of refugees in small towns, it appears that the presence of these displaced migrant refugees kind of regenerated previously vacated public urban spaces, parks, hospitals, schools, and so on. And in that respect, colleagues in Italy call the accommodation provision for displaced migrants and refugees as kind of having this kind of capillary function. That is, by its capacity to repopulate small and medium-sized urban areas, housing migration. In Scotland, that resettlement pathway, which is taken up by 32 local authorities presently, has expanded the geography of refugee housing from beyond Glasgow. And there's, to some extent, been a kind of focus on the regenerative potential for incoming refugee populations in terms of housing stock and areas experiencing historical depopulation. And indeed, resettlement accommodation offers potential solutions, I think, to housing issues caused by dispersal governance. So the relationship between accommodation, provision, and housing goes hand in hand with the capacity to potentially to kind of revitalise, I suppose, spaces that historically to some extent been declined. In Nicosia, in contrast, asylum seekers are accommodated by the state for a maximum of 6 months at most, and then struggle to find independent housing. Landlords are very reluctant to rent out to asylum seekers. For one, the government pays landlords directly, which almost always results in delayed settlement for rent. For another, the allowance itself is nowhere near sufficient for the kind of standard of housing that's required in Cyprus. So the third kind of tendency that I'm kind of trying to get towards is the relationship between the governance of accommodation housing and the participation with non-state housing, with NGOs, with charity, with the private sector, and so on. That's increasingly a feature of all of the housing provision that we observe going on across Europe. The Spira model is based on what's sometimes called kind of territorial networks, which rely heavily on local actors to run projects. And Calabria has more than 3,000 places across places like Cosenza, which is where our primary research we've done been located, as well as Nicosia Terme and Villa San Giovanni. In these places, stakeholders and local authorities have amassed a significant amount of experience, often through experimentation, with respect to housing integration in Calabria. Settlement of refugees has been a means of bringing together partners within the local area that otherwise might not work together on particular issues. In Nicosia, it's NGOs and local authorities that are in everyday contact with asylum seekers and refugees, not the state. And it's NGOs and charities that make it that make the best case on behalf of displaced migrants and refugees. And while welfare services have kind of signed things like memorandums of understanding, it hasn't come with a decentralised allocation of funds. It's still very centralised on the one hand, yet on the other hand, the state doesn't really want to engage. In Malmo, meanwhile, municipalities generally experience difficulties in finding accommodation for particular groups. They're kind of good in some respects, but not so much with the challenge of vulnerable people, especially people with children. And this new settlement law that's been introduced doesn't really entirely address that. And what we will observe as things in Sweden and Malmo develop through this new settlement law is that there'll be a greater form of dispersal and a greater requirement of local authorities and municipalities in Sweden to work with non-state actors. So very much in line with what we've been experiencing in Scotland. So I just want to kind of leave you with some key points really from this kind of brief overview that I'm trying to kind of sketch about approaches to accommodation and housing provision across contemporary Europe. The first observation is that successful approaches need to span what we're calling mode 1, the emergency reception, and mode 2, long-term settlement and integration. If accommodation needs to become a home, then this requires a much more joined up approach with things like labour market participation and other areas of social life, including the civic sphere with proper land support. At present, this kind of two-tier system between people who have asylum status and people who have refugee status undermines the whole system for the social problems it exacerbates rather than addresses. And in that respect, one of the recommendations that we make to our colleagues in Sweden is to be wary of dispersal solutions. This is something which creates systemic complexity and it adversely affects asylum accommodation provision. It pressurises and disenfranchises service providers at the local level, and it can create kind of hierarchies of engagement and representation that don't lend itself to good multi-level governance. There needs to be an open and successful kind of ongoing relationship or interaction between different levels of government that are sometimes obfuscated through dispersal. Across all of our cases, non-government actors and stakeholders are now central to the provision of accommodation and housing. And there's a great deal of weight which now falls on third sector associations and NGOs to partner up not only with state but also with private sector, ideally with some kind of support of public administration. So yeah, governance creates networks and partnerships, and gives a new rationale, a new basis for doing so. But that practice of contracting public companies to provide public services currently, in our view, is too asymmetrical. You know, contracts allow profit taking at the expense, I think, we feel, of good public policy or good service delivery. Social welfare services need to be flexible. They need to be much more responsive. They need to be there for people on the ground who arrive. But that requires more than simply contracting out services. And the final point I suppose we would make about this is that although we're talking about the incorporation of displaced migrants and refugees, remarkably, not all of this is about migration and refugee status. A lot of this stuff, especially with unsatisfactory housing provision within particular cities, is a longer story that can't be reduced to the status of displaced migrants and refugees. There's a long-standing shortfall in the provision of decent, affordable housing that isn't really exacerbated by new arrivals. You know, the proper investment and development in those areas are being. So, to some extent, kind of addressing some of the long-term structural issues, especially in the public sector, starts to head off some of the questions around a shortfall of provision and competition between particular groups. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to hand over to Emma, who's going to say a little bit more about recent developments in Glasgow, and then we'll hand over to All right?